Planning board meeting to order. Matthew, have you had opportunity to do the roll call?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, I sure have.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Has everybody had opportunity to look over minutes from the October 12th meeting?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I move we accept this.
Mr. Chairman, I have one correction.
Okay,
Mr. Dodson, my esteemed colleague over here, was not absent and present at that meeting. He was absent.
Yeah.
So we'd like to reflect that in the correction, please.
I'm not that
He
good.
is a good man, but I don't think he can be in two places at the same time. I'm doing that at his urging. I'm not trying to call him out or anything.
Anything else? Any commas or asterisks out of place
No, sir. With that, I would make a motion to approve
as amended?
as amended.
Second.
we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Public comments. Is this Mr. Mack?
Becky Mock.
Becky Mock.
Just signed up in case the spirit moved me to come and say something. Y'all carry on.
Has it?
Not yet.
Okay,
I'm listening.
thank you.
Max Morgan.
Short and sweet. Good evening. First off, I'd like to thank the planning staff, Matthew and Ian, for keeping the planning department running smoothly across the street. For the planning board, I just have one question. Where is the data? It is my understanding for something to be changed in the UDO, in this case lot size, there needs to be a problem. Not just a few people that want it changed. In all the conversations I've heard so far, no one has actually proved or shown data that there is a problem in Alamance County that permits the change of lot sizes. Even if this is based off of a prediction, there still should be some data that backs up this claims that this will become a problem. So planning board, ask again, where is the data that proves changing of lot sizes is actually necessary? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Morgan. All right, public comment session is closed. At this time, I'd like to take a short recess. We're waiting on someone to come to hang out with us, okay?
Yeah, I think you would just procedurally just say, unless there's an objection, you'll just sit at recess until they're present.
Is there any objection?
Hearing none.
Sir,
Hearing none. We're in recess.
we're in recess. That brings us to board commission responses. Matthew, you got anything?
No, sir, I did not. Mr. Chairman Paisley is unavailable tonight, and I haven't received any other messages from any commissioners.
Okay. Do you have any new business for us tonight, sir?
I do, yeah. Not necessarily any new business worth necessarily debating and voting upon. Obviously, if you see there are old business, you've got the lot size discussion. So I have a couple of other, you might just kind of categorize as information items. I'll be happy to relay them now under new business. They can go under old business, or they could go under announcements and discussions. It's really just however. I think with old business, the lot size being the top priority issue that the board has discussed, I think it would make sense for that to go first, and then I can speak on a couple of other issues. But again, it's up to you,
Okay.
however you want to format it.
I like that idea. Let's do old business and then you go ahead and give us what you got, okay?
Yes, sir.
All right, old business, minimum lot size. Rod's subcommittee had opportunity to meet.
We have met.
Do you have anything for us?
Well, to Mr. Morgan, we're gathering information from the EMS, sheriff, school, roads, DOT,
Okay.
to see if Alamance County is prepared for what may be coming.
Well, a good portion of it may already be here. Try getting down,
Let's hope.
from exit 150 to 70. Let's try getting down there about 4:30. You'll miss dinner. So that is a fact.
Sandy's exactly the spokesperson. You asked me, we talked to her.
Sandy, what do you have for us?
So Rodney and Vaughn and I met earlier this week, and I put together some notes. So I'm just going to take a minute. I think this will help with some of the clarification. We acknowledge that our work as a subcommittee is to bring together information and data, do some research to bring back to the planning board collectively on about the minimum lot sizes specifically, but our end goal is to advise on the ways to ensure that the future growth of the county is aligned with what the future vision of the county is. And I think that's all going to tie in together. We want to solicit feedback from the community, which we have started from different sectors, and we want to eventually get through. I know we've had a public input hearing or a public session a couple of months ago. It's in our meeting minutes to solicit feedback from what are the citizens want? What do we want to look like 5 years, 10 years, 15 years down the road? And to review the current lot sizes and our current UDO and to ensure that they're aligned with whatever that balance or aligned and balanced with the vision of the county. So are they appropriate as written? Do we need to look at them again? And just to be sure that whatever growth, whether it's here, whether it's still coming, that we're ready not only to sustain it and support whatever is approved for Alamance County. So we talked about 3 main points to kind of bring tonight just to get us started. And then the subcommittee, we meet again next week, and I think we're going to be meeting pretty consistently, working to get together as much information as possible. Vaughn has a wealth of information and experience and knowledge from the farming, the agricultural community, the land preservation. Rodney has a wealth of knowledge from being on the planning board and the historical property committee for years and years. And I've been a realtor for 20 plus years in the county. So I've got a wealth of knowledge and experience from homeowners, from the real estate, the builders and the developers. And then of course, we're all 3 citizens. So it's a nice cross section to be able to solicit input just from the county as a whole from different circles. Our 3 main points, I think, to ponder tonight, and y'all stop me if I'm going too far, if you want to add anything, was to look at the appropriate minimum lot sizes. We had talked at one of our earlier meetings about the tiered model with the 2, 3, the gradual sliding scale based on your land area. We've had discussions amongst the planning board collectively since we've been talking about this last year. Is the 30,000 sufficient? 30,000 square feet as written? Do we need an acre? Do we need an acre and a half? Do we need 2 acres? Where do we go from here? Our second big point to ponder was infrastructure for the county, our EMS, our public safety, the sheriff's department, our schools, our roads, our highways, our collaboration with DOT. You know, are we growing? Are we growing proportionately with the growth that's coming to us and what we're looking at in the county? Are we also mirroring that to make sure that the county citizens are not impacted if you're trying to get across town at 4:30? But can we adequately serve our schools? Can we protect our citizens from a safety standpoint? And can we serve them from an EMS standpoint when we have emergencies? You know, can we reach all points of the county effectively? And then the third point was the cone of effect. And that's looking at the environmental considerations, impact of the water table, the impact of high density new neighborhoods on adjacent landowners. Rob or Rodney's probably going to have a little bit more information on that. That's not my area of expertise, but I do have a pretty little drawing that I found with some information about that, with kind of what that's going to look like. And I think one of the examples was, you know, if you've got a high density neighborhood on well and septic, you know, how many holes can we put in the ground and there not be an impact, long-term, short-term, or on the homeowners that are already around us. Did I miss anything on those 3 important points? Because that's kind of what drove our first meeting. Our points to ponder are data to collect. We talked about the percentage of land area that's currently in the critical watershed in the county. It's already a 2 acre minimum. We talked about the percent of land area that's in the balance of the watershed that's currently written at a 1 acre minimum. Updated development numbers countywide, and that's really more so the county. You're not outside of your municipality areas, but what does that look like as far as lots that have already been permitted but not yet built, and any kind of subdivision or lots that are forthcoming, maybe in approval stages. And then to pull the data, much to Mr. Morgan's point, on population growth, housing growth, and infrastructure impact. And over the years, particularly the last 4 years, with some data that we shared at one of our last meetings, we had a little over 1,500 lots that have been permitted. How has our infrastructure changed in that 4-year period? You know, are we able to sustain and support what we're welcoming to Alamance County? And does that align with the vision of Alamance County? Questions that have been asked was the feasibility of public and or community water and sewer systems countywide. There were questions about changes in the environmental health, septic and well guidelines and setbacks, affordability of housing, if that was being considered. Those were questions I've been asked when I solicited feedback this week from some of the community members and groups that I've heard from that I wasn't able to answer, that we're early in the process. And I think that our goal as a subcommittee is a complete presentation and recommendation, maybe in the February planning board meeting, to bring forth to you the data and the points that we've collected, the research that we've done and what we've heard from the community. And from now until then, we'll be having multiple subcommittee meetings and pulling data together, asking the community, doing research, and just learning more about where people want to see the county in 5, 10, 15 years, and how this planning board can make those guidance or offer that advice or suggestion to the Board of Commissioners for consideration. Did I miss anything?
I think you got it.
Well, that's good.
All that.
And I'll just add that we have already scheduled to meet next Tuesday at around 5 o'clock. So you guys can go ahead and, you know, if we as staff need to provide you with any data or reference what's in the UDO, or, you know, procedurally how anything may need to happen, we'll be available for that.
And I'll just add, I have started getting some feedback from some of the groups that I have reached out to initially. I will consolidate that into a summary document and get it out to the planning board members tomorrow.
That sounds great.
Thank you.
Just a little point of information.
Yes, sir.
I met with a guy last Friday. Been knowing him for every bit of 40 years and hold him in high regards. He owns a 90-acre farm outside of Siler City. I met with him and he advised me that he had been offered $6 million for that 90 acres. So the growth's coming. You can rest assured of that. So it may sound like a broke record, But that mega site down there is not gonna stop. It's gonna continue.
And one more thing for the subcommittee is when the evaluation of the growth in how we gonna pay for it. Taxes-
Funding?
Taxes gonna
Funding
go up.
sources?
That's right, more,
Okay.
more growth. Some of the growth will, come with more housing, more businesses and all that, but at some point, it never keeps up, right? Because we've talked about that before, especially residential. Residential costs county money, commercial makes county money. So at some point, taxes have to go up. We already went through this reevaluation and a lot of people weren't happy with that situation. So that's one thing. So while you're talking, how we're gonna pay for it, the growth, too, because it never balances out with residential.
Okay.
Paul brought that up several years ago for some good stuff.
Cows don't go to school.
Mr. Chief,
The fish do.
They do.
you shared some information here several months ago about the projections for the new residential home construction in Alamance County over the next 10 years. Didn't you put that number around 60,000
In 10 years.
in 10 years?
Mr. Cheek's my daddy.
Oh, I'm calling you that out of respect tonight, okay? Yeah, I said it.
Well,
What was that data again? I'm sorry.
60,000
500 people,
new houses.
500 new houses.
Now, and
A
I'm going,
month.
a month. There's 60,000 houses slated for this county in the next 10 years.
Okay.
Okay, so, and now I'm gonna get into your mind number wise, because I know you got it. New school that was built over on 119. What is the capacity, the student capacity of that school?
1,250, I believe. It's 67 million.
1,250 students at that school. It cost the county in excess of $60 million. Is that right?
67 million, yes, sir.
Thank you. Okay, so if there's projected 60,000 new houses coming, I dare say that 1,200, that they're gonna need trailers down there, ain't they?
you mean classrooms?
Yeah, classroom trailers. At a $67 million school, it's got a capacity of 1,200, we'll say 1,250 students. With the projected growth over the next 10 years, I mean, the county's gonna have to ante up the money for several more schools, don't you think? So
Well, I
that's,
think that's part of the infrastructure.
that's what I'm talking about.
Like the
That, and I'm
schools,
just
the
adding.
EMS and the sheriff. I mean, I think
Right. So
the love's gonna have to be spread.
exactly. So, I mean, the population explosion is going to be real.
17% is the rate from 21 to 22,
Population growth.
just population
Mhm.
growth. Right now, that's a real number.
Thank you, Helen. And I'll just add on behalf of the subcommittee, if you guys have ideas, if there's other data points that you want us to look at or collect, if you've got suggestions or ideas on how to reach, to make sure we're reaching out to the community and capturing feedback from anybody that wants to provide it, let us know. We're certainly open to that.
Well, the information I shared just a minute ago, like I said, I've been knowing that gentleman for 40 years. Okay, that type of money for that size tract of land, you can rest assured they're not grazing cows and not planting wheat. And I can tell you right now, there won't be no mobile homes or RVs there. That's gonna be a commercial site. With a commercial site, you're gonna be hiring employees that's gonna have to have somewhere to live. They not gonna drive from Summerfield there. They might for a little while if they're in a management position. They're not coming from Fayetteville. They're gonna wanna live here. Now, I remember in 96, when I first came on this planning board, the chair at the time, Mikey Holt, made a statement to me, his biggest concern about Alamance County was it's gonna become a bedroom community. So just keep that in mind.
And 10 years later, we got that ordinance that in essence says we don't know business here.
Right.
But you could summarize it. And there's where we are. And here we are now, 17 years later.
Well, something's gotta give somewhere.
I'm hoping we'll be able to pull some data together to capture what Alamance County, what we want to look like in the next 5, 10, or 15 years and how we get there and make those presentations and those recommendations to the commissioners. Anything you want to add?
No,
Rodney?
no. It's a lot to, what everybody needs to understand. There's a lot of moving parts to this equation. It's not something that's gonna happen, in 45-minute meeting. It's gonna take us a little while to get all this together. What we're hoping to come back with is clear numbers and clear direction on what has happened, what is happening, and what can potentially happen based on what we know we have and what we can see if we were to change something, or if it even, as Sandy said, does it need changing or not? But that's what we hope to achieve.
One of the wild cards, I guess we haven't really talked about too much is, just how the municipalities are growing into the county and what that looks like. Because naturally, if they're gonna be large housing developments, mathematically, it will make more sense to be closer to a municipality and look at the annexing process. And so I'm curious, I've never really studied it, but wonder what does that look like, or how has it looked over the last 5-10 years as far as municipality growth and annexing those components of the county into the city, which that will kind of be out of this equation here, because obviously it would be city services, or we wouldn't have to worry about that problem too much. I'll be curious about that.
I met with a guy earlier this week talking about a subdivision that had been proposed down in the town of Green Level. The town council down there rejected it because their sewer capacity, it was over capacity already. They didn't have room for anything else.
So isn't however part of their line already over capacity, where they have a partnership with Graham and they've got sewer capacity?
The sewer has already maxed out its capacity.
Right.
There's no room for more. I actually had a conversation with one of the guys that was part of the construction crew to put that water and sewer in back in the early 80s. And the conversation was had that system was already maxed out. There was room for no more. That if they had any more subdivisions like the last one they had down there on 49 and Methan Rogers Road, they would have to go back in, and they was talking about the millions of dollars they would have to spend just to meet the service. That's why they declined and rejected the subdivision. So just because a municipality has water and sewer doesn't mean that it can take a population explosion.
And how many municipalities feed their water from wells?
Go ahead, Mr. Bear.
We do, Elon does,
All River does.
Gibsonville does, All River does, Greensboro
Level
does. Yeah, they got pipelines going into Greensboro.
Yeah. So, I mean, pretty much in the
Not all
middle of
of
the
them,
wet
yeah.
season, they're already wanting every drop they can get. And I didn't find this out until maybe a few months ago. Falls Lake down in Durham. City of Durham doesn't get no water from Falls Lake. It goes to Raleigh.
That's right.
So, water and resources is a big ticket item right there.
Well, that was something that came up in in our conversation, was in watersheds in this county that are undeveloped. What does that look like 5, 10, 20 years down the road? Are there going to be, will Buttermilk Creek become another reservoir? Will there be one in the southern part of the county? We don't know.
How long has it
But
been?
there are some, whispers of things.
How long has it been since the city of Broken built McIntosh?
30 years, 35 years.
And it takes about 20 years. The Randleman Dam was the last reservoir that was built in the state of North Carolina. From start to finish, from permits pulled to the day they turned the water on, it was 20 years time. So it's a long process. And that's something that everybody needs to understand. But it's something we're going to have. If you're going to have more homes, if you're going to have more people, they like to take showers and they like to drink water. It's pretty much a thing. So the infrastructure is part of this deal. It's part of what we're going to have to figure out.
Yes, sir.
What about your part? You said you had some information for us.
Regarding the lot size subcommittee?
Yes.
Yeah, so again, we're planning to meet next Tuesday. You know, I envision our role in this is obviously, any research that needs to be done or any kind of document reference that we can do, we'll certainly do it. One thing I've talked to the members about, in terms of the big picture look at on this is when you're talking lot size, you really got two paths you can travel down. You got a scientific rationale for lot size, and there you're talking about your well accepted considerations, your environmental watershed type considerations that inform from a scientific basis why you impose lot size restrictions. Or you have a policy rationale, which is much more in line with what Sandy discussed, where you think about the long-term vision, perhaps incorporating the economic development goals of the county. And, you know, do we want an area to be predominantly rural? Is there an area of the county that is better suited for one type of development over another? Those types of policy considerations. And so whatever the subcommittee decides will certainly help to, you know, inform it based on those types of considerations. But at the end of the day, I think something like this, from the policy perspective, you got to have either the scientific considerations or the policy recommendation considerations, and it really travels down one track or the other.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Is it all you have for us, Ms. Sandy?
Yes, sir.
Opinions?
Well, everybody's got one.
Now it'd be time to let it out. Well, I guess that being said, it sounds like you guys are, and ma'am, ladies, is off to a nice, productive start. Let's try and keep it up.
Thank you. Thank you, Rodney and Bob as well.
Does that take care of old business, sir?
Yes, sir. I believe it does.
All right, so let's come down here to announcements and discussions.
How about the new business? Did you skip new business?
There is no new business.
Oh, okay.
Not as far as I'm aware of.
Oh, okay.
So
Sorry.
there's any other initiatives the board wants to
No,
take up.
sorry,
So yes, we skipped it.
sorry.
All right. Announcements?
Well, okay. John, go ahead.
I was gonna say, obviously this is my second meeting, so I'm not 100% clear on the formatting of everything, but I do have a couple items to just bring up and discuss with the board.
Sure.
Should I go ahead and?
Yes, sir. Let's
Yes,
have it.
sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I did want to just provide kind of an update on the planning board and board of adjustment changes that were made recently. As the board likely knows, the county commissioners voted on Monday to create an independent board of adjustment and to reduce the size of the planning board from 13 members down to 9. And a copy of the text amendments to the UDO. I've put that up for all the members to see there. In addition to creating this new board of adjustment, the commissioners also accepted the staff recommendation to encourage planning board members whose terms are expiring or those who may simply be interested to apply for a seat on the board of adjustment. Personally, I believe this would go a long way to ensure participation from all board members who want to be involved and to serve on the board, and it would preserve the institutional knowledge of the individuals and provide experience and expertise on the new board of adjustment. I have also spoken with several planning board members who have concerns about the changes. And if any board members still have concerns or questions, then we will gladly answer them tonight. And I'm also happy to talk with you about what I think it would be like to serve on the new board of adjustment, or for example, the types of issues that would come before that board of adjustment. I've also provided you with kind of a roster membership and individuals, and it's broken down by planning board members whose terms will remain the same after the end of the year, planning board members with expiring terms that are eligible for reappointment, board members who are not eligible for reappointment, new applicants that the planning board has recommended to the county commissioners, and then individuals who have expressed interest in the board of adjustment. You do not have to make any decisions on those tonight. That just simply helps you to visualize you know, again, folks who would stay on the planning board or be reappointed or newly appointed to the planning board, those who may be interested in the Board of Adjustment, and just kind of how the membership rosters might break down. So again, I'm happy to answer, and I think my colleagues are happy to answer any questions you might have about that as well.
We, just a little more information, we'd be planning to bring those appointments to the commissioners at this point in the first December county commissioner meeting. They're not gonna make those decisions in the next week or so. We're gonna wait the announcement out for additional people who might be interested in applying for the Board of Adjustment, and then we would gather all those nominations and bring them to the Board of Commissioners at the first December meeting, which I think is the 6th, but don't quote me, it's around then.
So I have a question. We have 4 board members on this list with they have 1 term remaining if they reapply. We also have 4 people that are new applicants. Mr. Isley is a former member of the board. The 3 others are new applicants. So do we need to open up our process again and make new recommendations to the commissioners for these, what would be now 4 seats?
So the information we would be giving the commissioners is that what you guys have already voted on, that you at a previous meeting recommended a reappointment of the 4 existing members and these 4 additional new applicants. So we would be giving them that and kind of letting them sort through who they want to go where. I think there's also a period here where we will take suggestions. If some of you guys want to say, you know what, this has been great, but I'd like to be on the Board of Adjustment or whatever. We don't know how that's going to shake out. If you want to provide additional input besides that to the commissioners, I think it's totally fine to discuss that and vote on it. It's not necessary, but I'm sure they would be happy to receive that.
So going forward, there will end at January 1, there will be 9.
Right. Okay.
Question. So I'll make sure I understand something right. Last meeting, y'all brought this up as an idea. And now it's went to the county commissioner, voted on and passed and not been asked of us again. Am I understanding how that process works?
So I brought this to you guys last month.
As a suggestion.
Well,
That's where I understood.
Okay.
That's why I'm clarification. Yes, sir.
to the extent that I undersold that or wasn't clear about what the process was, then that's my fault, and I'll take that. It wasn't intended, it was intended to be transparent, and maybe we didn't get there. But it's not a matter that should go to the planning board. I'll put it that way. Just procedurally, it would not go to the planning board. We wanted you guys to know about it, so that's why I brought it up last month. I told you we were planning on bringing this to the commissioners. So trying to be transparent about that. It's possible I didn't convey the time frame or the urgency of it.
That's an understatement. So the way it was presented, I got the meeting minutes pulled up there, that you were delaying the reappointments and delaying the new people. And I thought maybe as a board, other than just springing it at a discussion or an announcement at the end of a planning board meeting, that we were trying to come up with setting our subcommittee, addressing lot sizes, which is a hot topic. And that suggestion coming up that it would be maybe a meeting or 2 that we would have time to discuss it and at least have an understanding of why, rather than just, hey, wife sent me an article this afternoon. Guess what? So yeah, that's a little heartburn to me. I mean, particularly, I don't have no issue with going from 13 to 9 or anything like that. I think when the idea came up last meeting, I was concerned about, sometimes we were thankful that we had 13 members.
For 13 townships.
Right, because you have, we maybe make the 6 or 7 we needed for a quorum or something like that, right? 9 is going to make sure that whoever is that 9, we're going to have more dedication, right? Which we should be, which we've tried to address that in the past too. So many absences and you're going to get called out on the carpet, right?
Right.
So I have no problem going to 9. I just think procedurally how it came about so quickly. And yeah, it was probably undersold that time. Yeah.
Understand.
Well, I will say, I'll just add, me and Rodney and Vaughn and I talked about this at the subcommittee meeting Tuesday night or Tuesday night. And kind of the same thing. And so I did go back and watch the meeting. And when it was brought up at our last meeting, nobody said anything.
The only comment was made when I
I
threw
mean,
my,
none of us, like, I guess, asked questions or opposition to it.
I was under the understanding it was a thought in somebody's head, not
Gotcha.
something on paper that was, bang, we're gonna vote on it tomorrow.
Gotcha. So I mean, I did go back and watch the meeting just to be sure, because I thought maybe I missed
The only
something.
thing I remember was Ray speak.
I just wanted to add that. 'cause I
That's
mean,
changing our board directives or whatever you want to call
well, makeup's changing pretty strong.
them. Right. But doesn't that come through us first and they go to the county commissioners when we're changing our guidelines? Right.
Well, I don't understand, but I mean, it's like I said just a minute ago, there's 13 townships and there's 13 seats on the planning board to offer equal representation throughout the entire county. So now we're going to 9. Which 4 townships is gonna give it up? Who's not gonna get represented? That's a legitimate question. So at our last meeting, the only comment, and I said this simply because December the 31st, Ray's getting a step down, that I was strongly, heavily interested in Board of Adjustments, and I am. And then I get a phone call Monday, and I thought that the world was coming to an end, the way it was put to me. So, I don't know.
I guess the only question I had was, the Board of Adjustments position, are they gonna post as an application process to the county? Has that already been launched or anything?
I've already spoken to the clerk about it. Whether she put it on the website or not, I'm not sure, but it's, if it's not out there, it's in motion. I guess it's already out.
I guess the deadline will be, I guess,
Well, if they're gonna be voting on it in March, they need to be doing something right quick, like, they got like a week or 2 to get it out.
yeah, that's all I was wondering. Seemed like it's what, a week and a half, 2 weeks?
It'll be open for at least 2 weeks.
And those applications will go, I guess, differently, because, normally the applications come to the planning board and we get a chance, but those will be, I guess, handled at the county commission.
Yeah, those would be like the majority of our board nominations. They'll go to the commissioners and they'll get the whole stack. We traditionally, as staff, don't make a recommendation there. They just kind of vet those and figure out who they want to appoint. And, you know, like one of the reasons for this list of who's eligible where is just to do the math, and among all the people who have served and who are interested in serving, there's enough seats for everybody. So I think we'll see who's interested in what, but I think our absolute goal in this was not to cut people out. Like that, we really appreciate you guys serving on these and want to retain the knowledge you guys have. So we wanted to make sure that nobody kind of got kicked to the curb, and we're not in that position. Obviously, if we get 30 new applications, then we'll have to consider that. That seems relatively unlikely based on the prior application stream. But who knows? But I think that there'll be a room for everybody who wants to.
Yeah, I guess the only potential risk is, depending on the 4 that are up for reappointment. If they move, 2 of them, I think, have expressed interest in the Board of Adjustments. If they move to that, we have the active subcommittee, and would that be allow for them to continue to serve on the subcommittee? We hope so, and provide that information to this board. Even if they move to Board of Adjustments, that's my only potential risk there. Is that something that we'll be able to say yes to as a planning board, or is that something that would come from?
I think that's an excellent question. Mr. Attorney, do you have any insight on that?
Yeah, so I was going to weigh in a moment ago on the question that we got about how things work in terms of changing the makeup of the board. So 160B kind of, yeah, 160B talks about the way in which some of the makeup of the planning board can be changed, and it's correct. The planning board has to have the opportunity to weigh in on ordinances and changes that are made that really affect the land use process. But in terms of the makeup of the board, the procedure for the Board of Commissioners actually forms the planning board. And so some of the regulations related to how the board is made up, the way it functions, those types of things don't necessarily require planning board input to change. So as a legal matter, you're correct that if there's a land use change, it does have to come to the planning board first. But in terms of makeup and function of the board, it does not. Does that answer the question that we got? Or do you have a different question?
First, the second one was, I think you raised an excellent point. If the current subcommittee members choose to or are appointed to Board of Adjustment, are they still safe to serve on the planning board subcommittee, even if they're no longer technically planning board members?
I think the planning board can seek input from anybody they might choose to work with in trying to form what's happening here. At the end of the day, the recommendations made have to be made by the planning board. So if members who are on the subcommittee rotate out and they still convene and meet, that's totally fine, but their input and vote wouldn't be considered with the rest in a formal action by the board later. Makes sense.
I just have a thought.
Yes, sir.
We're talking about a potential population explosion in the next few years. I'd like to know where the bright idea come to cut our planning board from 13 to 9.
So Matthew's new. He came in late on this, so I don't mean to keep speaking over him. I just don't want him to have to guess. I think the feeling is that as we looked around at the sizes of other planning boards and other jurisdictions, we are unusually large. And so they're the largest we found, quite honestly. Most of them are 7 or 9. And the feeling was, it's just, quite honestly, 13 people is a lot of people in a room to make decisions, for everybody to have a chance to speak. We want the input, but it's just it's kind of an unruly number of people. It takes a long time. It's hard to meet physically in a room. And so there's not an ulterior motive here. Like, this is not step one of a plan. The plan was 13 seems like too many. We're out of step with what our other communities are doing. So let's just dial it to a number that feels more manageable. And there is certainly room for disagreement on whether 7 or 9 or 13 are more manageable. And maybe you guys disagree on that. I certainly think that's a reasonable opinion. But that's the thought. It's just a lot of people.
And that's part of the answer. And I'll be honest with you too. Another part of the answer is that we realized that we were missing a piece of this puzzle when it came to having a board of adjustment. We had a number of inquiries related to the RV ordinance early in my tenure here that gave us reason to believe that the RV ordinance, as it was written, was not really getting us to the place where we needed to be in terms of what was desired, right? We talked about that. We made some changes based on what we all saw to be problematic with it. Well, the problem that we would have had is if those people had asked for a variance based on the way the ordinance was before, we had no one for it to be presented to other than Board of Commissioners. And that would put the Board of Commissioners in an uncomfortable position of trying to both listen to citizen input, but also remain impartial in dealing with those requests for variance. And that's tough. I mean, it's tough to listen to citizens and try to make the best decisions for the community, but then say, oh, not listening to those people now, I'm going to decide whether the rule that I have helped create applies to this situation or not, knowing that whatever decision I make is going to be appealed potentially to the Superior Court. That's tough. And so we realized that we're also one of the few communities in the local area that doesn't have a Board of Adjustment that is separate from the Board of Commissioners. So we saw those two things as being issues potentially, or differences, but at the same time, hey, we got a potential solution on one side and a problem on the other, and the two might offset each other. So that's really a lot of how that conversation happened. And it happened before Matthew ever got here.
And that's how I got brought into it early on, when you and I met, I guess, about a month ago, talking about creating a Board of Adjustment. And I had experience with helping to spearhead the creation of a Board of Adjustment in Caswell County.
The original board, we had, supposedly, back when we had the quarry issue, there was supposedly a Board of Adjustment. It wasn't formed. It was in the guidelines. Okay. All right. County commissioners took that on. All right. After it got into some you know, a little bit tighter stuff. We were talking about zoning at one point and we were redoing, the Hido at the time, it was called the Hido still. And county commissioner went to it. Okay, all right, okay. So, you know, at one point, there was an inquiry on who's the board of adjustment and who was it? Robert T. Was he the old,
Building inspection
building
director.
inspector guy? Yeah, yeah. He was supposed to be, there was no board of adjustment. I get the board of adjustment thing, and that is good. It's a good thing, right? It could have maybe helped some heartburn, with some teams that were, inquiring about some development in the southern part of the county. Okay. But to Ray's point, we have 13 townships and I never really understood how we have 13 townships, but you know, like, you know, I'm in Newland, he's in Newland, she's in Newland, but okay, so what townships aren't getting represented? Okay. So should it always have been one representative from each township? I mean, I'm not really
The
sure.
potential has been there since I started in November of '96. It's pretty much been 13 seats from then until, well, Monday.
So that mythical township thing was.
And the whole thing was every township had the opportunity. If there was no applicants from that township, then that seat would be filled by someone else that, you know, the planning board will review applications. It got sent to the commissioners. If everything worked out well, then there you go. That's why, like in this particular case, we have 3 from Newland, which is not necessarily bad because it brings a wealth of information from several different spectrums.
Right. You know, I live in the Snow Camp area. They live in the Eli Whitney area.
Don't hold that against him.
Yeah, well, I try not to.
He's my buddy. I know it. I'm close.
But, you know, so I can see that township as 2, you know, communities in it.
Understandable, but I mean, I guess it's gonna come back down to it now. So now we're gonna go to 9. So, who's not gonna get represented?
As a talking point real quick, could you bring up on the screen the township map on the planning board site? Just so we can see geographically what's where.
So and because it's not, has never been set up as a representative board, like we don't necessarily elect a person from a township. I'll be honest with you, that wasn't really part of the calculation. I'm not sure that I knew that was the reason we had 13, quite honestly, because we just never elected that way.
That's the way it's been.
That way. I mean,
Well,
I think-
we assume that, I guess that's.
Well,
There's never been one member of this board representing each township since I've been here. And that's January of '05.
But at least the opportunity was there.
But the
Well-
technology was available.
from '96 to now, and I can say this, from '96 to now, there's not been no township that has not been represented in that time frame.
At all times or just sometimes?
In other words,
At some point in time.
at some point in time, every
Since then,
township in this county has been represented.
I mean, as we talk about representation, there's nobody we don't want to be represented, right? We always want everybody to be represented. And I think that there are several of those townships, at least 4 or 5 of those are going to be completely within the city's planning
Correct.
jurisdiction. So
That's right.
they matter too, you know, we represent them as well, but as far as what the jurisdiction of the planning department is, it's,
There you go.
I don't
A
know.
majority of them,
It's
yeah.
probably 8 or 9 townships.
Yeah.
There's also the expectation that because it's the Alamance County Planning Board, that everyone here is going to represent the interests of the county, not necessarily individual townships, in presenting your ideas and recommendations to the board. So that has to be considered as well.
It can be considered, but those Burlington, Mebane, Elon, city, town, village residents have served on this board. And when we would have a discussion concerning a flag lot, that's when half our meeting was discussed about what the city of Burlington would allow. When once again, this is Alamance County Planning Board. So, you know, I guess I'm understanding what everybody wants to talk about, but understand this. Since that proverbial bubble burst when the mortgage crashes took place, not one set member of this planning board has cost the county 1 penny. Not one. Jason Martin was planner at the time. I went over and visited with him myself on College Street. He was talking about budget cuts, first one thing then another, and I told him, I said, keep your money, I don't want it. I serve this county because I'm that dedicated. Roddy Cheek was right behind me.
And I think Ray and I are the only two that have been here, that were here when we got paid. And of course, I asked, because none of the rest of y'all have been paid in the county, have you?
Wait, y'all got paid for this?
We used to.
Well, that changes everything.
And I asked the question,
Yeah, you want to amend the agenda?
I said,
Point of order, sir.
if we give our money back, can it go back to the planning department? And the answer was an emphatic no. It will go back to the general fund. And as a result of that answer, I did not make the motion to dissolve us being paid. It was made and it was voted on, but I did not make that motion.
Individual planning board members at that time basically refused their pay because of budget cuts at that time. So just so you know, there's not a sitting member in here, and the one that didn't make it tonight due to work, family, and other things is not costing this county not one plug nickel, not $1. So if it was 13 or 26, Ray Cobb, Vaughn Willoughby, Bill Poe, any of us, we're not costing the county not $1. Other than paying a light bill for us to be here. So guess what? When you got 9 in here, you're still gonna have a light bill.
Well, based, Mr. Chairman,
Sure, go right ahead.
so based on the map up there, you've basically got 5 townships that are somewhat municipal-ish. I mean, they do have some area in and out of municipalities. So, you know, if there's 13 minus 5, that's 8. So you've got 9.
There's still right much county into Boone Station.
Right, I'm saying it's not entire, but it's,
And I don't want to derail the current discussion, but just out of curiosity, on this particular map, does anybody in the room know the hatched areas within a given township and how that color correlates to the municipality?
is that an ETJ?
ETJs? Okay.
Well, ETJs, it should be just a communist illegal thing anyway.
Well, that's part, they're under jurisdiction.
So the
of
Burlington
municipality.
Township is entirely encapsulated by either municipality or its own ETJ. That's what I'm saying.
It looks like it, yeah.
So I'm assuming then when we tell a township, oh, well, you're 95% municipality, you can't serve on our planning board, then the legal department will get to fight that too.
Well, I don't think we would do that.
I think that's what I was just looking at, bullet, for some of the membership. I was trying to see if it made it clear that you had to live in one of the townships, or was it live in the county? And the way they worded it was live in the county and be a county resident.
Yeah.
Not necessarily in a municipality. Just one of the stipulations was that you couldn't, no more than 2 is the proposed change. Members of the planning board will reside in the same township. So that's what I was looking to see if there was any correlation, but it's worded pretty clear that they're not saying you had to live in a particular township versus in a city, you know, municipality or whatever to be on a plan.
Because you could live dead center of the city, but
Yep.
given
You
that
still
you fall
be
here
on
in
the
a township, you can serve
Which
in the county.
Which I'll be honest, when I first applied and joined, that was my understanding, thinking that I represent citizens of Melville. But
Yeah.
from reading bullet forward, that's not the case. Just like Attorney just mentioned, we represent all 484 miles.
When I remember me and my wife bought our house in 2004. When I started out on this planning board, I was representing Pleasant Grove Township. All right. I'm proud of my township. I'm proud to be where I'm from. Me and my wife bought our house. I thought when we bought it, it was a house we wanted. I didn't care about where was I gonna go vote. It didn't make no difference to me. I got gas, I got a truck, I'll get there. Well, come to find out, my property line with my neighbor is property line. On his side, he's Pleasant Grove. On my side, I'm Fawcett. I didn't think nothing about it. I was like, I'm gonna just keep getting it. Jason Martin was the planner at the time. I have all respect in the world for him, but when he found out about that, I promise you, he ate a bottle of Tums. His head like exploded. Because I may have been a resident of the county, but I was in Fawcett, not Pleasant Grove. So township does matter.
Yeah, and I know I mean, as planning board, we are to represent the whole county.
Jason's
But I mean, it
one found out.
is,
Huh.
they're your neighbors or whatever, they find you on the planning board and, you know, yeah, they've got questions for you.
I know.
They've got questions for you, and they got questions for you if it's something happening up there, you know, where Vaughn is.
They do, don't they, Smokey?
Yes, sir.
Yes, they
They
do.
have questions.
There's a junkyard somewhere.
Because they feel that, yeah.
It's gone now.
He's on the planning board, he's in our area,
I've been
we're
told.
contact him. Okay, all right, so that, yeah, while we look out for the whole county, but we do get inquiries by people for that.
Well, and you're right, because, I mean, my phone rings all the time. I'm sure it does yours does too. Rod, he'll call me. I mean, he's just folks reaching out to him about first thing. It happened to all of us. So we're not just representing the county. We have our own little consolidated township. That those people will call over at the time. They would speak to Craig, Jason, Libby, or whoever, or Matthew now. Well, okay, so you in Newland Township, you need to talk to this one right here. That's your representative.
That still happens.
Of course it does.
It does.
So, you know, I guess I'm feeling, I mean, if they're gonna do what they wanna do, that's fine.
Well,
It's already
But
done, right?
I have,
It's
Mr. Chairman. I have-
And it's already done.
Go ahead,
I
Ms. Willoughby.
guess, yeah, the thing that more discussion would have been nice for us to deal with that rather than, and if this has been happening for a while, then why wasn't it brought up when Tanya was still here? And there was a planning board meeting that we skipped because nobody wanted to represent the planning, department.
Well, I'm gonna throw something in. Vaughn's got something in he's saying, I definitely wanna hear it, but I'm gonna throw one in here, good fashion for you. Why were we not represented proper to the county commissioners? Now, I just caught you asleep this night. You're not gonna sleep tonight, bud.
Well,
It's plain and simple. Yes, they did say to us, this is an idea. This is what we're thinking about. This is what may happen. 2 weeks later, commissioners got it. With the understanding from what I'm gathering is, well, this is, nobody said nothing, so nobody was opposed. It really wasn't a discussion as it is right now. If we'd had this discussion last time, maybe it would have turned out a little bit different this time.
Didn't know it.
Mr. Willoughby?
okay, so going forward here, this is all fun, but we're gonna have to have 9 people. My only concern for this board, for this county, for this Board of Adjustment is that we get good members and mostly get experienced members on this board with a good mix of experience into that Board of Adjustment. That's what we need. We have a lot of issues coming forward to this county that are gonna revolve around this planning board that we need some expertise. My biggest problem with the way this thing has gone down is that we were allowed to make recommendations for reapplications or reappointments based on the fact that we were going to have 13 working members. So we made those appointments and we made those recommendations. If we had known that there were going to be 9 seats instead of 13, we would have probably made perhaps different recommendations for those appointments. And that's where I've got an issue, because right now, essentially, you're telling me that we're going to send 8 people's names or 9 people's names down there to the commissioners for 4 seats. And that's not fair to this group, because those aren't necessarily, we want the best 4. If that's what we're going to get a choice in, we want the best 4. We also want the best 5 for that other Board of Adjustment. But I think we're being a little handcuffed by not allowing us to either rework those appointments or something, because now it's.
So I think it's completely appropriate for you to redo that process and to send new recommendations.
Then we need the county commissioners to send it back to us.
Not at the county commissioners yet, it is with you. So if you want to change your recommendations, I think that's fine to do that.
I agree.
I have a question. Maybe this is a selfish question, but it follows up on Anthony's comment about the subcommittee, and I appreciate that. So the revised amended version that was adopted is 2 members of the planning board per township, and it was 3. And so Rodney and I are both up for reappointment. Mr. Poe is already on the planning board, so that's 3 members of Millen Township. So one of us would have to come off, and I need to know what that role would look like if I come off the subcommittee, and then when is the Board of Adjustments put into place? I'm happy to serve wherever or nowhere. I mean, whatever's best for the county. I just kind of want some direction. Because that raises a great point. And then I see in the number 4, there's only 2 spots for Newland. So that creates another juggling.
Yeah.
So do we have the townships for the new applicants?
Yeah, I was curious too.
I'm jumping ahead here, but
But we need to know.
we need to know.
I think we can.
I can pull those up.
Thank you.
Well, here's another part to this. To be fair to everyone that's in here, especially these other people, to make this decision tonight without them having an opportunity to come and represent themselves, I think is short-sighted.
But if they're voting in December, you have to have this discussion tonight, correct?
Well, I guess so.
Or you're going to call another meeting.
Or they're gonna have to we'll have to have another meeting and,
Already. Don't have the Christmas thing.
I mean, but that's the snafu that we're in, because you're right. You can't have but 2. We have 3, and 2 of y'all are on, 2 of you are on the subcommittee.
I will do whatever. I just want to know what that's going to look like. So if I need to pass this duty to somebody else, I think it's appropriate to do it at the beginning.
Right.
Before we dive into it.
There's 2 questions there. I think, like I said before, as to the subcommittee, subcommittee can be made up of any number of members of the planning board that don't form a quorum to make sure that committee can meet effectively without having to give public notice. So as long as it's less than a quorum of the board, which is now 5, then that's fine. I think it's appropriate if you were to come off for them to appoint someone else, but it's equally appropriate for you to continue to be involved in that meeting process as a citizen advisor, with just as much input, except for the fact that at whatever point in time the issue might be voted on, you wouldn't have a vote as to what happens with the information you might gather. So you could serve kind of as like a secretarial role there. And I say that in the governmental sense, not in the lay sense, but you could serve as an advisor to that board and then come and present, and then it could be voted even if you're not a part of that vote. So that's number 1. And then as far as the Board of Adjustment, it doesn't yet exist because the members have not yet been vetted to form it. So whenever that happens, that board will exist from that point forward. We're just procedurally not in the place where those people have been vetted and formed yet.
I kind of like that, you on the subcommittee.
I'll do whatever.
And I like that, you're
wherever
on
I
the
need
planning
to
board
be. And
too.
if that's at home, I'll be at home. I'm good.
Apparently
I
the
just-
pay's the same either way,
The
so.
clarity.
Yeah, we're getting.
I mean, the
nothing.
clarity would be nice for the planning board, just so we know what direction.
Well,
to take.
the heck of it is we've kind of designated Sandy as our chair of our subcommittee, which creates a whole nother layer of,
But I can pass what we've gathered so far off. I just don't, I want to be fair to the planning board that,
Yeah, and I don't think there's any issue with you staying on the subcommittee, whether you're
Okay.
a planning board
Just
member,
wanna make
board of
sure we're all
adjustment
on the
member,
same
or
page.
a no member at all. Right.
I agree with that completely. I think the board can decide what's
How
appropriate.
much time do you got left?
1 more year.
Here.
Yeah.
he's
Your
the same,
second term.
he's in
Yeah,
the
my
same,
second.
he and I are in the same class.
Come off next year.
We graduated at the same time.
One even.
Well, then,
part of this mess again.
It will be an advanced degree.
Why don't you come to the board?
I like to say we went to different schools together.
Thank you.
About that.
Well, that still doesn't address the big elephant in the room.
Okay.
Because the way it's been described, there's a very real possibility that neither she nor I are gonna be reappointed. Because when they take that list of 8 and pick 4, there's a real possibility. We've already seen that recommendation be darned. We're just gonna do what we do. Yeah,
Well,
so, you know, I'm glad to help. I've been here a long time. I know a bunch of stuff. But if the commissioners do not want Rodney up here, he's got a 4-year-old at the house. She sits right here and watches Mr. Dillon. She could tell you about Festus smoking a pickle, launching and bellering.
So, Mr. Chairman, do we need a motion to open up and reappoint these appointments? To send a new reappointment list to the commissioners?
that'd probably be the proper thing to do.
I do, but I just don't think I should.
Did you have something you wanted to add?
Do you
Please
have a
do.
point of order?
Please do.
It's just a question. I kind of said this in the meeting Monday. Are we going from 13 to 9 because other counties are smaller?
That's what they just told us.
That's the
Well,
way I heard
But I
it.
mean, do we have to be like other counties?
Miss Pam,
I'm just asking, because this is not my territory, and I'm not gonna come in here and, like I usually do, start trouble.
we're glad you're here.
Well, I mean, I just am hearing the bits and pieces of it. I was really surprised. It's kind of like, it's just, I think there's been a communication drop
Breakdown.
somewhere. And I'm feeling it, and I think everybody's doing the right thing, but I just don't want to see us lose representation because our county, when the Toyota plant and all that stuff down there, Lord have mercy, my part of the county is going to explode if it's not really handled right. And I don't want New York City on Green Hill Road.
Well, I tell you, generally the way it works is trickle down. You know, things start at the top and it kind of sort of trickles itself down. Now I'm gonna trickle back up. I've said this for years. What township are you in? I'm in Fawcett, born and raised in Pleasant Grove, and loved it dearly. Things are different in Newland Township than it is in Pleasant Grove Township. It's different in every township in this county. Okay? So with the other communities' planning boards, maybe they drive Priuses. I got a diesel guzzler. It doesn't fit the same. It's just like telling everybody to wear Skechers. We just had our planning board taken.
I've got Skechers on right now.
Good for you.
Oh my gosh.
Good for you. I'm wearing white pythons.
Well, they fit good and they feel good.
But my
I
whole,
didn't mean to start anything. I just
No,
asked
you-
the question because I'm clueless.
you didn't start it because it's been on the tip end of my tongue for the longest time anyway. If it gets to the point that for whatever reason in upper management that we don't matter, why are we here? Why are we here? If okay, how many people's on the planning board in Randolph County?
I have no idea.
Guilford County? Orange County?
I counted 9, 8 or 9 on Guilford County earlier.
Okay.
12 or 13
So my
on
point being,
Randolph.
this ain't putting you on the spot. That's not my point. Which communities were we compared to?
The memo that we gave to
The other
the,
counties were smaller than we were.
Okay,
Did I understand? I mean, that's what I understood you say.
Other boards,
Other boards.
other boards are small.
the memo that we shared with the commissioners compared Alamance to Iredell, Caswell, Pitt, Rockingham, and Rutherford, because the criteria we looked at was they were either comparable in population, they were geographically proximate, or they also did not have countywide zoning. So Iredell County is a population of 195,000. When you look at the demographic breakdown of county population throughout the state of North Carolina, it is immediately higher, is the next immediately more populous county than Alamance.
Iredell County, where's that at?
Iredell County is Statesville.
Statesville.
Caswell County is geographically proximate, and it basically has no zoning. It has partial zoning.
No disrespect to Castle County. Castle County's population is nowhere near what it is in Alamance either.
I agree. Pitt County is immediately smaller in population than Alamance, has a population of 173,000, 11-member planning board with 1 ex officio. Rockingham County is geographically proximate, 7 members with 3 alternates. And Rutherford County has no zoning, 8 members and 2 ex officio. And in case I didn't mention it, Iredell has a 9-member board and Caswell has an 8-member board with 5 ex officio.
It's funny about Agile County, 'cause I was just looking up some agricultural stuff,
Mhm.
about agriculture. Stuff like that, or some kind of overlay. Agile County, I was reading that 80% of their people are associated with the agricultural industry, so that's not our case at all, right? What's our big industries are probably manufacturing, right? Manufacturing, we got a lot of businesses here. So probably they have a lot less to deal with.
I'm sure they do. No disrespect intended. I was just in Castle County today, was there yesterday too. I like it up there. It's a great place. I think they've got 4 stoplights in the whole county. You can't go out there and get in the car and go to McDonald's that you don't pass 3. So, I mean, it's right
The
back.
difference is we have, the county you're comparing, Alamance County has bullseye and it has a lot more development, a lot more going on per capita than some of the other counties, even if it was compared population.
Well, it's back to the argument that I made, and I will take this all the way to the very end with me. Things are different from township to township, county to county. It is different. You go to Orange County, I'm telling you, let me ride through Hillsborough, and there's people down there in their Subarus and Priuses. Their headlights explode when I come through with my diesel with a straight pipe on it. They hate to hear that turbo. I laugh and keep getting it. It's different. So us going from 13 to 9 is going to be a severe handicap for this county. Severe. Because there's a whole lot of talent that's here and there's a whole lot more that can come. I sent a text message out that I was opposed to it. Sir, Sheriff Johnson can escort me to the county line tomorrow, tell me to get out and don't come back, and I'm still opposed to it.
If I give him $1,000,
But the bottom line is.
Give me the 1,000 and I'll leave anyway, because I'm leaving tomorrow anyhow.
That's it. And there's no discussion we have. I think Paul's right. Our next discussion is who we recommending and what we want to do with the full board of adjustment and the planning board. That's where we are.
Is this board of adjustment gonna have a liaison to the commissioners as well?
No.
I have another
It's
question.
a Judah.
I don't see anything in here that says you can't
Quite
serve on both.
Judah.
Is that
That's
the
a different kind of
intention,
class,
or are you
Judah
intending to
class. No, that's good.
Yeah, that's a great point. I don't think it explicitly states that.
I don't think it does, and I don't think that necessarily, I don't think it's intended that not be the case.
Just curious.
I think there's an inherent conflict with serving on the planning board that helps to create the recommendation that's adopted by the commissioners, and then there's a variance request. So if you're a person who's on the planning board who helps create the land use regulation, and then the commissioners uphold it, and then you're later asked to decide whether or not it applies to a certain circumstance, there's an inherent conflict there. But at the same time, we're also asking members of the planning board, because of their experience, to serve in that place. So I think the conflict comes when you are directly involved with the ordinance that was adopted, and then you're asked to interpret it. It's kind of like why we don't have judges also making law and legislators also serving as judges. The 2 roles are somewhat different, and we're trying to keep those separate. So I don't know that you necessarily couldn't be involved on both, but I think I would probably recommend against that.
but it probably wouldn't be wrong to have a liaison.
The other,
Somebody in there for clarification if need be.
the only other thing I could think of too is like in the case of a special use permit, if there ever a need for a special use permit on the development. A lot of times the traditional procedure on that is planning board review and recommendation, then it ultimately goes to the board of adjustment for final adoption. But I'm not sure how many, Ian might be able to help me with this. I'm not sure exactly what may require a special use permit in Alamance County, but in other jurisdictions, I've seen that that's the procedure for special use permit. So you may have that one individual making a more or less subjective recommendation on a permit and then having to kind of make an objective quasi judicial decision at the very next meeting. And that might be a little tough to navigate. But it's a great question. That's an excellent question you have.
Yeah, but the setting and the circumstances of involvement are totally different. So the Board of Adjustments, it's for quasi hearings and things are transcribed and the things that are said are later used as evidence at a hearing in Superior Court. And so
Maybe.
potentially, if there's an appeal. So in a lot of ways, the staff is putting on a case for the board to then hear and decide. So the staff kind of serves that role as liaison in situations where there's questions about what happened earlier in the process.
Are we gonna report these people tonight?
It's up to you, Mr. Chairman.
I think you need to go.
That's your,
Special meeting.
Next month.
No,
no,
2
you,
weeks.
you come up to have a special meeting in 2 weeks.
Let them folks that's black come in here.
All right, so with the information that's been provided tonight, that we need to re-recommend to the county commissioners, seats on the planning board.
I think that's your discretion. It's not required. but
Well,
discretion if you want to do that.
make the motion, Rob. So pretty much this is what needs to take place. Then we need to have a meeting soon, so this can be in front of the commissioners before the end of this year. The whole purpose of us making our recommendations when we did is come January, we don't want to lapse or unable to make a quorum. That's the whole purpose.
Yeah, because we didn't do this early like we are now before. So we had that.
This came up about 3 years ago when somebody would term out in December, and in January, we're sitting over here barely at a quorum, if we could get a quorum, and we need to fill these seats. So I remember when it was done, I think Rod and myself, we worked with the planning director at the time, that we would have our nominations to the commissioners in plenty enough time for them to hear it, get them appointed to be at our January meeting, so there would be no lapse. Instead of 3 people coming in here, well, you ain't got a quorum, what you gonna do? You can't do nothing, you ain't got a quorum. We did that.
So Ray, I think there's also a second December meeting and we weren't targeting that just because it's really close to January 1st. But if you guys are interested in hearing the applicants again and making another recommendation, I think we can try to move our appointments to the commissioner's second meeting to give you guys a chance to do it.
When is the commissioner's first December meeting? Is it the 4th?
Yes.
Okay, so here's the thing. Who sets the agenda for the commissioners meeting?
The county manager and the chairman of the board, so Mr. Paisley and Heidi York.
I just asked because I don't know. I started with him, he went to him, and then we got back over here. Is this something possible that we commissioners could hear this again? Because we make amendments all the time. See, I don't know. I'm just hearing serious concerns from all of you, which tells me there's a problem. And this is a massive committee because of the changes that are coming out of this county. And you really need solid, experienced people in it. I don't want a 2-day resident doing my brain surgery, but I'm just saying, it's just, I'm asking as commissioner, because this is not my gift. Is this something we could revisit?
If you could get your chairman to put it on the agenda, you could certainly revisit it.
Well, here's the thing, and
You're just one of 5.
But we like you. Well, here's the thing, and this is back to your 13. Yes, we've had 13 members, but guess what? We have covered just about every spectrum in the county as far as we've got farm representation, construction representation, realtor representation, general contractor representation. I mean, you know, we have covered it all.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Count who's here. Count the attendance tonight. You're hung up on 13.
Mm-hmm.
Look at how many are here right now.
We got 8.
And how many is up for reappointment is on hold right now, or how many is gonna be left?
Well, I'm just saying.
4 times out,
You've got to.
or in those.
You got 9. You've got 9 people here now.
Of the experience.
Yeah, but I mean, it's the same. Go ahead.
So question for Rick and or Pam or Matthew or
Not me.
Brian.
No, you want the smart people.
So what is the expectation for the commissioners? We send forth the recommendations, and I guess you guys get the applications and you look at the recommendations, but then you also have the privilege or the option to appoint who you feel is most suitable, not necessarily who the planning board recommends. I know that's happened in the past. So what is your recommendation to the planning board or your suggestion? What are you looking for us for? I mean, do we just send them the 8? Is it, do you want us to rethink this and send in something new? I mean, what are the commission, what are you guys, what do you want from the planning? What's helpful for you, for us to send to you?
I answer this or you got it. I think technically, according to the language of the UDO and the rules of procedure for the planning board, you simply make a recommendation and then ultimately the decision is up to the county commissioners. That's the case in this instance with appointments. That's the case generally with even land use policy regulations that you guys consider. That's the case for any advisory board or committee in the county. You know, take planning board and board of adjustment out of the picture for a moment. Let's say the Parks and Rec board recommends the construction of a new basketball course. Okay, at the end of the day, the decision on whether or not to do something like that rests with the county commissioners. So it's simply, from what I understand, it's simply an advisory recommendation that you guys make. Now, obviously I'm new here, so I don't know the full history, but typically the history has been that the recommendations that come from the planning board go to the county commissioners, they accept those recommendations and everything is in harmony, right? That's just typically been the
Well,
pattern.
that's typically, it's been that way up to the last little while.
That's right. Yeah. So I guess the question, I mean, to piggyback on your question, well, I guess for clarity for me, so the 4 that are up for reappointment, did we already vote to reappoint them?
We did.
Okay. Then technically, that's 9. I mean, so I'm.
That goes, even the reappointments goes to the commissioner and they can
Right.
say.
So that's what I'm wondering. So the reason why I brought that up, because that's already 4 with no changes.
Correct.
Just leaving the board as is.
But there are 4 more down there that we also,
right, that we also
recommended
So
because
it's
at
kind of
that
like we
time,
have to vote or narrow it down
right,
to 4 to
If I might-
include
If
our
I
others.
might offer a suggestion, it might actually be beneficial to think about the roster of the Board of Adjustment first. Because if we are in the situation where any planning board members come off or terms rotate out or whatever, obviously that's where they would go. And then you look at who is left, who's still there that's just a recommendation.
So maybe that's a.
Mr. Chairman,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
would you have a problem serving on our Board of Adjustment?
Ray, I haven't even considered. I just heard about it. I watched the commissioner meeting where this was brought up. And I was gonna be here tonight regardless. I want to see what this was gonna be about. I don't know if I'm gonna be here or not gonna be here. I don't know. I have never considered it, right? I haven't, but maybe I should. But you know, it's something definitely to think about.
If you could, I'd greatly appreciate it, sir.
And Mr. Chairman, I'll be glad, as I mentioned in my comments, I'll be more than happy to kind of elaborate on the roles and expectations and procedures of the Board of Adjustment. And in fact, I'm kind of a nerd for quasi judicial procedure, so I would actually enjoy that opportunity, but it's totally up to you.
Fill us in a little bit, if you will.
I'd like to. Yes, sir. Yeah.
I'd like to hear it.
So in a nutshell, a Board of Adjustment is going to hear predominantly variance requests and appeals. Variances are when you have a unique situation with a proposed development or some other planning operation, and you need a little bit of a reprieve from the rules. Appeals are, as you might imagine, appeals. So I make a decision or Ian makes a decision on a permit, we deny an application or we reject a development or whatever. That is then appealed to the Board of Adjustment, and then the board would have the authority there. That can then be further appealed to the Superior Court. Any Board of Adjustment decision can ultimately be appealed to the Superior Court. In my experience, the vast majority of cases that go before a Board of Adjustment are variances, because you have unique situations where There may be an issue with setbacks on a property, for example. There may be an issue with a subdivision procedure. And I'll give you one specific example that I dealt with in Caswell County that I think is really illustrative of these types of procedures. So we had a gentleman in a rural area of the county who owned two small lots right next to each other. One lot was about 3.3 acres and the other was about 0.35. Okay, the minimum lot size requirement in Caswell County is 1 acre. So he came in years and years ago and wanted to build a house on his lot. But the layout would have required that he build a house on lot A and then the septic system exists on lot B. Okay. But he begins his permitting process and environmental health says, you can't have your septic system on a different lot. We want you to combine these two lots together. And so he goes out and he hires a surveyor and they submit a recombination plat to the planning department. Well, we look at it and we say, okay, in all situations, this is an exempt recombination. We have no problem proving it. But the problem is it has to be a recombination and in line with the modern subdivision standards, which are 1 acre minimum lot size. So he was going to combine the two lots together and have about 7/10 of an acre, but it was not approvable administratively because it did not meet the minimum. So he applied for the variance, and in applying for a variance, you have to petition and meet specific criteria. That criteria is, one, that the hardship would result from the strict application of the regulation, again, the 1 acre minimum. Two, that the hardship would result to conditions that are peculiar to the property, like size, location, topography, and all the rest. Three, that the hardship did not result from actions taken by the applicant or the property owner. In this case, it wasn't him, it was the environmental health department that was compelling him to do this. And number four, that the variance request is consistent with the spirit, purpose, and intent of the regulation such that public safety is secured and substantial justice is achieved. So in doing this, he's complying with environmental health regulations. He's still complying with setback regulations. He is seeking to come into compliance with the rules and all the rest. And so the board did in fact grant him that variance. So I think that's just a good example of the types of issues that would come before the Board of Adjustment. So you see how, you know, in our discussions about this and the staff recommendation, and everything, having the institutional knowledge that planning board members have about the development regulations in the county and the experience in dealing with these issues, that's going to make you, I might say, uniquely qualified to be a great candidate, a great person to sit on the Board of Adjustment to deal with these types of issues. It's not going to be exactly the same because planning board is going to make advisory recommendations to the county commissioners, and the Board of Adjustment is going to make quasi judicial decisions that may be appealed to a higher authority. But it's in the same ballpark, you know what I mean? Yes, sir.
Matthew.
Yeah.
Me and Rod sat up here and had a short discussion.
I know you weren't even listening to my example.
I didn't have to because I know you all over top of it. Because you're gonna get a chance to tell us one more time.
Okay.
Rod.
Well, he's already told me.
I've done listened to him before.
Yeah, I heard.
Don't you remember last month when I was so hyped up about this? Me and Matthew's had our talks.
It would be right to allow these applicants to come back in here. Some of them haven't been in front of this board. So we can adjourn this meeting and have a special call meeting next Thursday night to give everybody a chance to come in here and talk to the board, talk about the Board of Adjustments, let everybody be heard one time, make a recommendation to the commissioners, and still be in compliance with their window. Because if next week, 2 weeks is Thanksgiving, and I don't think that's gonna work. 3 weeks is the 30th, and that only gives you 4 days or 5 till their meeting.
Possibly, but I think there's opportunity to do the appointments at the second meeting in December. Correct.
If you guys want to just do this at your next planning board meeting, next regularly scheduled planning board.
Which would be
January.
Oh, you're not doing it in December.
We haven't because of Christmas holidays and want to make sure everything's happy.
But can we?
The only other alternative would be at the beginning of the social meeting to have a meeting.
That right there would be stirring up a can of worms.
Okay.
When we do our,
I'm just informing you, you're all.
and I'm with you, but when we get ready to do our Christmas dinner that Rod's going to inform us about here in just a few minutes, a whole lot.
The public would need to be invited.
We ain't saying can't nobody come. They just gonna pay their own bill.
We have to.
When that time comes up for us to get together for our Christmas dinner, I'm more concerned with, did you get something for your daughter? You sending your wife on vacation? That's where it ends. Do you want a steak or you gonna do grilled chicken? That's all we need to be concerned about that much. Go for it.
So do we want to, does it suit everybody to come back next Thursday?
No. Doesn't suit me.
Okay. Is anybody else it doesn't suit?
Gotta work me.
I'll be cutting it close. No, actually, I won't be. I'll be in Charlotte. No way I can get here that quick.
We have another board meeting next Thursday.
Okay. So if we do it on the 30th, which is the Thursday after Thanksgiving, then that gives it.
When you say you're opening the meeting back to hear, are you gonna listen to the ones that we didn't recommend also?
Well, it would be right to. If
It
they-
would be right
if
to.
they
I'm just
want to.
asking if you're the whole.
Yeah, if you want to put an application,
Everybody.
if somebody puts an application in between now and then, that gives them a chance to be heard.
I just wanna make sure we were clear. It's not just the ones that were recommended, but every.
But everybody, that's right.
Mr. Chandler, would the 30th work for you, sir?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Eisen, would the 30th work for you, sir?
I've got something that evening right now. I might can reschedule, but tentatively, I do have something that.
You see what I'm talking about? That man's dedicated enough. He's gonna do what he can to be here for us. He does not need to be overlooked.
Yeah, I think that you guys could also take input from them now in case they're not available. for the
Well,
special
we
meeting.
heard from him at the last meeting.
Yeah.
And he served 6 years. Some of us have worked shoulder to shoulder with him,
Mm-hmm.
but anyhow, Mr. Barrett.
Yeah, we got 3 names at the bottom that say they were interested in Board of Adjustment. Shouldn't we know whether they want to be reappointed or Ray Camp and if Steve wants to
And
stay
this,
here or
this
go to
window
the
of
Board of
time
Adjustment?
allow us to get this worked out.
Yeah.
So that we,
I'm just waiting on Matthew to call me and tell me that application's online, because I've got 3 secretaries waiting to download that bad boy so I can fill it out and get it back to him.
Well, I mean, and Sandy's willing and
Yeah,
Steven.
I'm
said he
willing
was
if that
willing.
opens up.
Steven's still got more time. He could serve.
I'll
here.
clarify that as far as my name being on the list. I did express interest, but not immediately.
Okay. All right.
At some point in
That answers
time,
my
I may be
question.
interested.
That answers my.
But right now, I'm gonna keep it like it is.
All right, that answers my question. Thank you.
I'm fine expressing interest in the Board of Adjustments.
That's two.
so the 30th.
And that will solve the problem for the planning board. That does not, that way it doesn't jeopardize Bill arriving.
The 30th work for y'all.
30th is fine for me.
Okay.
And the purpose, it works with me, 30. And so the purpose of that would be to rehear
Hear from the
everybody's.
applicant.
And make new recommendations.
Recommendation.
Miss Thompson,
Narrow it down to
can you be here on the 30th?
three.
November,
Yes, ma'am.
I will get a sub for the Celebrate Recovery group I lead, and I'll be here, but I have no importance here whatsoever.
I can
except
assure
just to
you,
Sit here.
I can assure you, you do.
Now ask Rick, he'll tell you,
Oh, that's not true. You know.
Now, my
I'll
next
help
question,
any way I can, but this isn't my committee, so
what-
I'm limited.
so now, we're gonna have a meeting on the 30th, once he makes the motion.
Can y'all meet on the 30th?
I assume
Stay
so.
on the payroll.
I mean, we still do that.
I know, it's proper thing to do, but you know, the next thing is it gonna get put in front of commissioners, is it gonna get delayed to March?
I think the idea is to have the nominations before the commissioners in December. It sounds like at this rate, it would be the second meeting.
You know, we don't want to wait past January 1st.
Yeah.
Our goal is to have people appointed in time.
Yeah, I think maybe one thing that's important to consider too is we don't have any pending appeals or variance requests or issues that would really require a board of adjustment to be constituted as soon as possible. Not that that's grounds for encouraging any kind of a delay or anything, but I just think with that board in particular, it may be a while till they actually meet and conduct any business. And so I just don't know that there's any real urgency to that.
I think there is only from the perspective of the fact that we're gonna have to do some hands-on training with that group.
Yeah, that's true.
Because that's a new realm for us, and so that'll be an opportunity for Matthew and I to kind of work with that group and,
yeah,
and do some coaching.
Sure.
Well, if that's the case, then don't you think maybe it'd be a good idea to go ahead and at least get a board seated?
Oh, sure.
You know, because it's pointless to wait till somebody needs to present something to the Board of Adjustments, to then we're gonna decide the particular.
Oh, sure. Yeah. No, I'm not advocating for any one thing over the other.
So in all honesty, it'd probably be a good idea if the commissioners would go ahead and do something on that too. I'm just saying that out loud.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I move we have a special call meeting on November the 30th at 7 o'clock in this room to listen to applicants, make recommendations on board appointments for the 24 year.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I second it.
Motion with a second. All those in favor signify aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Oh, you want that? announcement?
You gotta do that right there first.
To adjourn?
No,
I thought we was gonna have a Christmas.
we are.
It's at
your house.
If Sandy's hosting, we'll just all meet up in 5:30 at her house. Ray's cooking, she's hosting. So we're talking with the church about catering, hosting the Christmas party. And the women in church are gonna use this as a fundraiser for the youth, for summer missions, summer camps. And this way, we have our own room. We get there, we have our meeting. We don't have anybody saying, you know, we got another group coming in here at 7:30. Let's see you, bye. We'll be there as long as we are. And when we talk about it, visit, do what we do. And when we get done.
That takes a little heart burn off having to buy my own meals since it's gonna help somebody.
Well, my understanding, you're gonna be bringing the eggnog.
Which church?
We're
That's true.
already at it.
Yeah.
I need to.
Right. Yeah, good plan there, Ray.
So we don't.
I had the carton.
But that will be sent out. in an email.
It's still the 14th.
Let's see about the church.
December.
Is that right?
1 year after.
That's a Wednesday.
December
14th,
It is Thursday.
It's the same Thursday as our regular meeting.
When I told them, I said either the 5th or 7th or 12th or 14th. So I give them 4 options.
They're all happy.
And to make it a little easier on them, but probably.
Let's help me. I just love you.
Are we good?
We can go. Hey, you going down?
I don't know.
Well, she was putting